In 1975, Elvis had a panic attack at Graceland, got in his Cadillac, and drove alone for 6 hours. He stopped in a small town where nobody recognized him. A diner waitress named Linda served him coffee and asked, "You okay, stranger?" Elvis told her something he'd never said before. "For the first time in my life, I feel free." This is the story of getting lost to find yourself. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in September 1975. Elvis woke up at Graceland unable to breathe. His heart was racing. His chest felt tight. Sweat poured down his face. He knew what this was, another panic attack. They'd been happening more frequently lately, brought on by medication, pressure, exhaustion, the constant weight of being Elvis Presley. He tried to breathe through it, but the walls of his bedroom felt like they were closing in. Graceland, which should have been his sanctuary, felt like a prison. Every room held people, staff, security, hangers-on, people who needed him to be Elvis. Elvis got out of bed, threw on jeans and a simple shirt, grabbed keys to one of his Cadillacs, and walked out the back door. No security, no notice to anyone, just him and the panic he needed to outrun. He got in the car and started driving. No destination, no plan, just away. Away from Graceland, away from Memphis, away from Elvis Presley. Elvis drove east on Highway 78, windows down, radio off, just the sound of wind and engine and night. The panic started to ease as the miles accumulated, as Graceland got farther behind him, as the weight of being who everyone needed him to be began to lift. He drove through small towns, Olive Branch, Bahalia, Holly Springs, places he'd driven through before but never really seen. At 3 a.m., they were dark and quiet, a few streetlights, the occasional gas station, but mostly just darkness and the road ahead. Elvis kept driving, through Mississippi into Alabama, small highways that connected nowhere to nowhere. As the sun started to rise around 6 a.m., Elvis found himself in a tiny town called Cedar Creek, Alabama, population maybe 500, one main street, a gas station, a general store, and a diner called Linda's Place. Elvis was exhausted. His panic had faded but left him hollowed out, shaky. He needed coffee, needed to sit somewhere that wasn't moving, needed to be still. He pulled into the diner's parking lot. There were 3 other cars, locals getting breakfast before work probably. Elvis looked at himself in the rearview mirror. He hadn't shaved. His hair was messy. His clothes were wrinkled. The sunglasses he grabbed from the car's console hid his distinctive eyes. He looked like a stranger. He looked like nobody. It felt wonderful. Elvis walked into Linda's Place. It was exactly what you'd expect. Vinyl booths, a long counter with stools, the smell of coffee and bacon, a jukebox in the corner playing country music quietly. 3 men sat at the counter, farmers by the look of them, talking about weather and crops. They glanced at Elvis when he entered, gave him the brief once-over you give any stranger, then went back to their coffee. They didn't recognize him. For the first time in almost 20 years, Elvis walked into a room and nobody knew who he was. He sat at a corner booth, slid into the seat, and just breathed. A woman in her 40s, wearing a simple waitress uniform and a kind smile, came over with a pot of coffee. Her name tag said, "Linda." "Morning, honey. You look like you've had a long night. Coffee?" "Yes, ma'am, please." Linda poured, studying him with the practiced eye of someone who'd served thousands of weary travelers. "You okay, stranger? You look a little rough around the edges." Elvis almost laughed. When was the last time someone asked if he was okay and actually meant it? When was the last time someone looked at him and saw a person instead of Elvis Presley? "Long drive," Elvis said. "Just needed to get away from things." "I know that feeling. Sometimes you gotta run before you can think straight." "Where you headed?" "Nowhere specific, just driving." "Well, nowhere's as good a destination as any," Linda said with a smile. "You hungry? We got eggs, bacon, pancakes, all the road trip essentials." "Just coffee for now, thank you." "You holler if you need anything else." Linda walked away, leaving Elvis with his coffee and his thoughts and the profound relief of being nobody. Elvis sat in that booth for 2 hours. He drank coffee. He watched the sun come up fully, morning light filling the diner. He watched locals come and go, farmers, teachers heading to the school down the road, a mailman getting his breakfast sandwich to go. Nobody recognized him. Nobody asked for autographs. Nobody treated him like he was anything other than a tired guy passing through town. And Elvis felt something he hadn't felt in almost 2 decades. Freedom. Not the freedom that money buys, not the freedom to do whatever you want because you're famous and rich, but the freedom to simply exist without being watched, judged, needed, consumed. The freedom to be nobody. Around 9 a.m., the breakfast rush slowed. Linda came by with the coffee pot again. "You still with us, stranger?" "Yes, ma'am, just thinking." "Heavy thoughts?" "The heaviest." Linda refilled his cup and instead of walking away, slid into the booth across from him. "You mind if I sit for a minute? My feet are killing me." "Please." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Linda said, "You running from something or running to something?" Elvis looked at her, this waitress in a tiny Alabama diner who had no idea who he was. And because she didn't know, because he was just a stranger to her, he told her the truth. "I'm running from being who everyone needs me to be. I'm running from a life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels like drowning from the inside. I'm running from myself, I guess, from who I've become." Linda nodded, like this made perfect sense. "That why you're sitting in my diner at 9 a.m., looking like you haven't slept in a week?" "Yes, ma'am." "What do you do, for work?" Elvis hesitated. Then, "I perform, entertainment business." "Ah, that explains it. My ex-husband was a musician, traveled a lot. The road eats people like you alive if you let it. All that moving around, never being home, always being on for other people. It's no way to live." "No, ma'am, it's not." "So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. I can't quit. Too many people depend on me. Too many obligations. Too many people who'd be disappointed if I just walked away." "But you're drowning." "Yes." Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that hit Elvis harder than anything anyone had said to him in years. "You know what I learned after my divorce? That you can't pour from an empty cup. That taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Because if you break completely, all those people depending on you, they're going to be disappointed anyway. Better to disappoint them by setting boundaries than disappoint them by collapsing completely." Elvis felt tears spring to his eyes behind his sunglasses. This waitress, this stranger, had just articulated what he'd been feeling for years but couldn't name. "What's your name, stranger?" Linda asked gently. Elvis took off his sunglasses, looked at her directly. Elvis Presley." Linda's eyes widened. She looked at him, really looked, saw past the messy hair and the wrinkled clothes and the exhausted face, saw Elvis Presley sitting in her diner. "Holy, you're really him." "I'm really him. Elvis Presley is sitting in my diner drinking coffee at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday because he had a panic attack and drove 6 hours to get away from his life." "Yes, ma'am." Linda started laughing, not mean laughter, amazed, slightly hysterical laughter. "This is the craziest thing that's ever happened in Cedar Creek. Wait till I tell my sister. She's never going to believe me." Then she stopped laughing and looked at Elvis seriously. "But you came here to be nobody, didn't you? To not be Elvis Presley for a few hours." "Yes." "Then that's what you'll be while you're here. Just a stranger passing through. I won't tell anyone. And when you leave, you can go back to being Elvis. But while you're in my diner, you're just a guy who needed coffee and peace." Elvis felt something break open in his chest, gratitude so intense it was almost painful. "Thank you," he whispered. Elvis stayed in Cedar Creek for the rest of the day. Linda let him sit in that booth as long as he wanted. He ate lunch there, a simple burger and fries. He watched the lunch crowd come and go. Still, nobody recognized him. Around 3 p.m., Linda's shift ended. She sat with Elvis one more time before leaving. "You feel better?" she asked. "For the first time in my life, I feel free," Elvis said. "Really, truly free. Not because I have money or fame or can do whatever I want, but because for 10 hours I got to be nobody. And nobody is the most peaceful thing I've been in 20 years. You going to be okay when you drive back?" "I think so. This helped. More than you know." "Elvis, can I give you some advice from someone who's just a waitress in Alabama who doesn't know anything about your life?" "Please. Find a way to be nobody more often. I don't mean literally run away. Though if you need to do that occasionally, do it. I mean, find spaces in your life where you're not performing, where you're not on, where you can just be a person, because that's what you are underneath everything else, just a person. And people need quiet and peace and freedom, even famous ones, especially famous ones. Elvis reached across the table and took Linda's hand. You saved my life today. You might not think so, but you did. I poured you coffee and left you alone. That's not saving a life. It is when the person needs coffee and being left alone more than anything else in the world. Elvis left Linda's place around 4 p.m. He left a $100 bill under his coffee cup with a note. Thank you for seeing me and for not seeing me. Both mattered. EP. He got in his Cadillac and drove back to Memphis, back to Graceland, back to being Elvis Presley. But something had changed. He'd proven to himself that he could still be nobody, that under all the fame and expectations and pressure, there was still just a person, and that person needed protecting, needed space, needed freedom. Linda never told anyone about Elvis's visit, not right away. She kept the $100 bill but didn't spend it, framed it instead with the note, hung it in her home where only she could see it. Why didn't you tell people? Her sister asked when she found out years later. Do you know what kind of publicity that would have brought your diner? Because he didn't come for publicity, Linda said. He came to escape it, and the greatest gift you can give someone who's famous is to let them be nobody for a while. I wasn't going to take that away by making it a story. After Elvis died in 1977, Linda finally told the story publicly. She did an interview with a Memphis newspaper describing the morning Elvis showed up at her diner running from a panic attack, needing to be anonymous. He told me that for the first time in his life, he felt free, Linda said in the interview. And I think that's the saddest thing, that freedom meant being nobody, that the most famous man in the world found peace in not being recognized. That should tell us something about what fame costs. The story resonated with people who'd never thought about the price of celebrity. Elvis ran away in the middle of the night and drove 6 hours just to sit in a diner where nobody knew him, one person wrote. That's not the life of someone living the dream. That's the life of someone in a beautiful prison. The story also resonated with other celebrities who recognized their own struggles in Elvis's midnight drive. Many cited it as validation of their own need for anonymity, for spaces where they could just be people. The midnight drive story gave me permission to have boundaries, said actress Jennifer Lawrence. To say I need time where I'm not on, where I'm not Jennifer Lawrence, where I'm just Jen. Elvis showed us that's not being difficult or ungrateful. It's being human. Cedar Creek, Alabama embraced the story. Linda's place put up a small plaque. Elvis Presley sat here on September 1975, drinking coffee and being nobody. We were honored to give him peace. The booth where Elvis sat became something of a pilgrimage site, not for fans wanting to be close to Elvis's fame, but for people wanting to understand his humanity. People sat in that booth and thought about what it means to need escape so badly you drive 6 hours to find it. I came here after a breakdown, one visitor wrote in a guest book Linda started keeping. I sat in Elvis's booth and realized I'm not weak for needing space. I'm human. If Elvis needed to run away, then I can give myself permission to do the same. The midnight drive became a symbol of something important. That success doesn't cure loneliness, that fame doesn't fill emptiness, that sometimes the most valuable thing in the world is being nobody to somebody. Linda kept the $100 bill and note until she died in 2010. In her will, she left it to Graceland with a request, display this where people can see it. Let them understand that Elvis was just a person who sometimes needed to not be Elvis. That's the most human thing about him. The bill and note are now displayed at Graceland in an exhibit about Elvis's private struggles. Visitors often cry when they read the note. Thank you for seeing me and for not seeing me. Both mattered. Because that's what we all need, isn't it? To be seen for who we really are. And sometimes to be invisible so we can just exist without pressure or expectation or performance. Elvis found that for 10 hours in a tiny Alabama diner. 10 hours where he was just a stranger who needed coffee, where nobody wanted anything from him except his order, where he could breathe without being watched. 10 hours of freedom in a life that had very little of it. Sometimes getting lost is how you find yourself, Linda said in her final interview before she died. Elvis got lost that morning driving to nowhere, but I think he found something important in my diner. He found proof that underneath Elvis Presley, there was still just Elvis, just a person, And that person deserved peace and quiet and freedom, even if it was only for a few hours in a small-town diner. The Midnight Drive reminds us that fame isn't freedom, that success isn't the same as peace, that sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone, even someone who has everything, is permission to be nobody. Elvis drove 6 hours to find that, to sit in a booth and drink coffee and not be recognized, to be asked, "You okay, stranger?" and have it be a real question, not a performance. For 10 hours, Elvis was free. Not because he escaped Elvis Presley, but because someone, Linda, a waitress in Alabama, gave him space to be nobody. And in being nobody, he remembered who he was before fame made him everybody's property. Sometimes getting lost is finding yourself. Sometimes running away is running toward something. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is to not recognize them. Linda understood that. And for one morning in September 1975, she gave Elvis Presley what money couldn't buy and fame had taken away, the freedom to be nobody. If this story of panic, escape, and the freedom of anonymity moved you, subscribe and share it. When did you last need to be nobody? Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the hidden costs of success.